Hey there, welcome everybody, and I'm Steve Farrell with Humanities Team. If it's Friday afternoon, then we are live and on the air. I'm coming to you from our studio in Boulder, Colorado, and welcome. Great to be with you. We're coming in an hour early here today. We have a very special guest who I'm going to introduce in a moment. Real excited about the hour-long program directly ahead. So a shout out to all of the people who are part of Humanities Stream Plus, the people in the humanities.team community that are watching, people on Zoom, people on Serena Dyer's Facebook page, and people that are part of the Sign Network, and to John Raymer, who's broadcasting to all of these other Facebook pages. Good afternoon, good morning. Great to be with you all. And as I mentioned, a real exciting program in store. Now, as we do each week, we're monitoring comments that are out there on Facebook and on these sites that we're broadcasting to, and where there are questions and things, we'll try and get to those here during the hour. So don't be shy. If you have something that you want to bring in for me or our special guest, please do post, and we'll try and get to your question. Now, so in addition to talking about some books and things that our special guest is doing, we're also going to be talking about PACE briefly, which stands for Planetary Awakening, Conscious Evolution. It's a 20-year mission that we announced earlier this year in Humanities Team, where we're working with conscious leaders all over the world to manifest a fully conscious humanity in 20 years, a fully conscious Earth. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And also, this subscription platform is the streaming platform for masterclasses for all of those that are conscious. It's called Humanities Stream Plus. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. Now, the theme for today's program is Understand the Quiet Urges of Your Soul. So, pretty cool theme. Understand the quiet urges of your soul. And our special guest is Serena Dyer. You might have guessed when I referenced her Facebook page. And welcome to the program, Serena. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here with you.
All right, and Serena, this is a live program. So now, where are you coming in live from?
I am coming in live from Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
All right, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And as you might guess, Serena is one of Wayne Dyer's I could say kids, but grown adults now. So, and Wayne had a large family, and wow, Serena's just a real special daughter of Wayne's, as you're going to see. Let me give her a proper introduction here. So, Serena Dyer is the sixth of Wayne and Marceline Dyer's 8 children. Serena attended the University of Miami, where she received a bachelor's and master's degree, and now lives in South Florida with her husband. She spends her time traveling, reading, blogging, and working to combat child trafficking through several local organizations. And I think you've got 3 kids here as well. Is that right?
Yes,
Serena?
I do. I have 3, 6, 4, and 2 years old. So very busy over here.
Wow, no kidding. 6, 4, and 2 years old. Yeah, my kids are 16 and 19. So yeah, well, fantastic. I'm sure that is a very full and fun life.
It's fun.
So there's a lot we're going to do here. We're going to actually go to, in fact, why don't we start with a video that we've got that is of, it's of her dad, Wayne Dyer, reading a letter that Serena wrote to him, I think on Father's Day. So this is about a 4-minute video, and it'll kind of tee up a lot of things that Serena and I are going to discuss. So let's go right to that video here.
So this is what my daughter Serena, who's sitting right there, said, who's getting married on July the 1st in Maui. Yeah. So proud of her. Love her so much. Love you all so much. Dad, she said, today I sat behind you in Ephesus, Turkey, while you gave a lecture to a few hundred people who had traveled from all over the world to hear you speak. I was overcome with emotion as I saw you standing there fulfilling your Dharma while touching the lives of so many. I know you as my father, but you've always been a teacher to me as well. You have taught me that the solutions to all of life's problems are inside of me, and that I only had to go within to be silent and present and know that all is well. You never told me how to live or what to think or what to believe in. Instead, you showed me how to make each step a prayer and each word a word of love. You taught me about Rumi, St. Francis, Hafiz, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Muhammad, Saint Germain, Neville, and so many others. You taught me to believe in magic and miracles, and you showed me how to be in awe of the awesome world we live in. Since the time I was brought into this world, I knew that I was safe to be exactly as I was, and that whoever I was, that I was a perfect creation of God. You told me that I was God, and that it was God that looked out from behind my eyes. I learned from you that I was the master of my own fate, the creator of my own destiny. Of all the lessons I have learned, the thing that hit me the hardest was when you said that I am God. Could I really be a spark of God, a perfect creation put here on earth with a purpose? You say this all the time, but I've always struggled with it, especially since school and society were telling me otherwise. I doubted myself, I felt inferior, and I worried that I needed to apologize to something for even contemplating this crazy idea. I have felt unworthy, undeserved, and unsure. Although you gave me great tools, I still had to figure out how to use them on my own. Now I understand that God is love. God is beauty. God is truth. You told me I came from an infinite space of perfection, and that I will return to it one day too. Slowly, I'm beginning to understand. People love you so much. And yet to me, you've always been Dad. You drove me to school each morning, you taught me how to swim, to ride a bike, you read me stories, and you came to all my plays. As I have grown, you have encouraged me to follow my Dharma and to go after whatever it is that excites me. You believe in me, Dad, and I love you so much for that. What do you say to someone that gives you life and then showed you how to live it? You say thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you. Serena. Yeah.
Wow. So what a video. What a moment. I'm sure you remember that moment well, huh, Serena?
Well, the letter actually came about because I was on a cruise with my dad, and he was giving a lecture in various parts of Europe. And one of the locations that we went to was Ephesus, Turkey. And all of the people on the cruise ship would attend his lectures, and they were all really just thrilled to be on this cruise with him. And I was just in awe of his graciousness toward everyone. And I mean, imagine being one individual on a cruise ship with, 1,000 people that are there for you. You don't really get a moment's peace. And he was so gracious about it. And I was just deeply touched to witness that. But what happened was, when we got to Ephesus, Turkey, there was a woman waiting for us when we came out of the cruise ship to get on the bus to go to the place where he was going to speak. And this woman lives in Iran, and she had been corresponding with my dad for 20 years at that point. And she had been translating his work, which was not allowed in Iran. She had been translating his work into Farsi and Arabic and distributing it locally. And so my dad knew exactly who she was, but they had never met in person. And she had figured out a way to get to Turkey, and she was there. And I was just floored that here we were on the other side of the world in Turkey, and a woman who had been risking her, I don't know if she was risking her life, but she was risking a lot by putting his work out there in her own country that did not allow his work to be published. Um, and so as I sat in that audience with his, while he was giving a lecture, I actually sat next to her, and we had dinner with her, and it was such an honor to meet her. And I just cried the whole time because he was talking about Rumi and Hafiz, and I felt so much gratitude in that moment for having him as my father and for having been exposed to all of these great spiritual teachings, and for getting to witness miracles like meeting this woman. And when I got back to my room that night on the cruise ship, I wrote that letter and I gave it to him for Father's Day. So every time I see a video of him reading it, it's really deeply moving for me because I meant every word.
I'm sure you did. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, Wayne was such a great man, and I don't know how many times I would see him on PBS where he had these large audiences and just bringing these important messages to people all over the world, helping people to understand that we're all an emanation of the one, which you could call God or the divine or love or cosmos or life or whatever word you choose. But then and then all of these other deeper lessons, and then, well, now how can we live our life where we're in alignment with our soul? Which we're going to actually get to that message here in a moment, because of course with your sister, you wrote a beautiful book here on the topic. But your dad was such a great man, and I'll share a story too, Serena. I've got a timeshare actually on Maui, and it's right next to where your dad lived. His condo thing was just next door, and so I went over there, years ago. I was with my daughter, Sophie, who's now 16, and we were walking along the path to a luau that was just over at the Sheraton. So you've got to walk by your dad's condo there. And I knew he lived there, and I just happened to look over, and there he was reading a book. And I'm with my daughter, Sophie. And so I just stopped for a moment to decide. I said, now, gosh, I would love to go over and just introduce myself to Wayne, But then I thought, well, he doesn't, I'll bet crowds are disturbing him all the time as he's trying to just read a book and have a quiet moment. So I just was kind of caught in that. And I ended up not saying hello. And then through a whole series of things that happened, where we'll talk a little bit about Karen Noe and her becoming involved with your family and her own book and then your book. So through a whole series of things now, I've come into Wayne's world, So it just apparently was supposed to happen in the afterlife, where I'm sure he's present now, just laughing and thinking this is the coolest thing, that I'm sitting here talking to you about not only his work, but your work.
I definitely think he thinks it's cool. And I think he would have loved for you to stop him and say hello, because he loved it. He loved when people would come up and say that they read his books, or that they went to his lectures, or they saw him on TV. And usually if somebody did that on Maui, I know exactly the boardwalk you're talking about, he would send one of us kids to go deliver some books to their hotel room. So, it was a daily occurrence, and he loved getting to meet people that were interested in his work.
Yeah, well, he was a great, great man. So, and continues to impact the world in so many ways. So, hey, good news. He's got this family that's out doing this incredible work here in the world. Let's talk about really neat things that you're doing. Maybe we can start with, there's a book that you created with your dad some time ago, Don't Die With Your Music Still In You, my experience growing up with spiritual parents. Do you want to just say a word about that book? Because not dying with the music in us is important, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's the lesson, right? My dad had written a book years ago, and it was called 10 Secrets for Success and Inner Peace. And it was a book based on the 10 principles that he wanted his children to really understand. Um, and so he wrote that when I was young. And then, a few years later, he had asked me if I wanted to go with him on the road and introduce him at some of his talks and tell some stories, because everyone would ask at his talks, they would ask my brothers or sisters or myself, if I were there, what he was really like as a parent, and if he really walked his talk. And my dad said, why don't you come and just tell some stories about what it was like to grow up with spiritual parents, and if I really am, who I am on stage. And so I did that with him. I went with him and we had a really good time. And afterward, I decided to just start writing out some of those stories about growing up with him as my father and my mother, Marceline, as my mother, in this really big family where we had um, an Uncle Deepak, which I knew was not the norm for everyone. And we had monks that were friends that uh, we learned transcendental meditation. I learned it when I was 5. So we learned it when we were kids. And anyway, so I just started writing out these stories and he loved it. And which I knew he would get on board anyway. But so he decided that at the end of each chapter, he would, um, he would give the response almost from like the spiritual perspective of what I was writing about. And we really tied that into the 10 lessons from 10 Secrets for Success and Inner Peace. So that book we wrote together. And it came out in 2014.
So that book again is called "Don't Die with Your Music Still in You." So Serena Dyer and her dad Wayne Dyer, and it's available still on Amazon. So if you
Yeah.
if you like the idea, go check it out. I was just looking at it this morning. So now, but you've recently written this other book with your sister Sage, and so
Mhm.
this book is just out. It's called "The Knowing: 11 Lessons to Understand the Quiet Urges of Your Soul," which is interesting. 11 lessons to understand the quiet urgings of your soul. So, can you talk a little bit about that? What you frame it in a very specific way. What were your thoughts here with this, Serena?
So uh, during the last, I said this to you briefly before we came on live, but during the last 6 years, I was faced with a number of challenges, really big challenges, life altering challenges, starting with the birth of my first child. Immediately after, my husband was indicted, then my father passed away. We had financial issues, then my stepson passed away as a teenager. In an accidental overdose. And in that time, I also had 2 more children. So there had been, and I admittedly um, was really numbing myself with alcohol, or um, really with alcohol. So anyway, this book, The Knowing, it was, and the idea behind the 11 urges of your soul, the quiet urges of your soul, it's this idea that within each one of us, we have an inner knowing. We have a compass, if you will, that is the part of us that is God, God consciousness, God realization. It's the part of us that is bigger than just the confines of our physical body. And when we operate from that place, when we tap into that space, that part of ourselves, we are never led astray, even in the most challenging of circumstances. I did not get that right away. I certainly didn't apply it to myself. I was suffering and I was struggling, and I didn't have my dad a phone call away to help me get back on the path. I really had to figure it out for myself. And what I came to understand, what I came to know, which is really what the book is all about, is that I had the tools and the pieces to get through anything. anything in life, no matter how challenging, I had that within me. We all do. But so often we forget. And then we look for answers or solutions or salves or balms for our suffering outside of ourselves. But there's a part of you, there was a part of me, there's a part of everyone that knows that we can't we can't solve anything. We can't find peace. We can't find joy when when we believe or buy into the idea that joy and peace are outside of us and there's something that we have to go locate. Um, I really lived this idea that when everything in my life fell into place, then I would have peace. But I knew that it was the opposite, that I had to find peace within me, and then everything in my life would fall into place. And that's what happened. And the book, The Knowing, that I co-authored with my sister Sage, it's really a very personal, because there's a lot of what I just mentioned that I went through. There's a lot of stories about these struggles, and I mean, the book opens with the phone call um, when my when I found out that my dad died. Um, and so, it's got a lot of personal elements to it, but I think that everyone goes through difficult times, goes through difficult situations, and I think that it really is so relatable. This idea that within you, you have an inner knowing, an inner compass, or I like to say a lighthouse, your own inner lighthouse. That when you return there, it always leads you home.
Yes, it does. Wow, and thank you for just sharing so openly. Not something that everybody wants to do. And as you share, it's all of this is laid out in your book, so which I'm sure makes this message very, very powerful, because you're not trying to say, "Hey, I've walked on water my whole life." You're saying these are all, these were these enormous challenges that I had to dig out of to get from there to here. So what, Serena, what you shared of these, huge challenges back in this 2014 timeframe. So how did you then, if you were just going to kind of give a synopsis, how did you walk out of that into this place where now you're writing books and of course, you're raising a family and you've got a very full life. You're clearly living the life now. So how did you
Yeah,
get
and
from there to here?
I stopped running from there. That's honestly the simplest way to say it. I I stopped being afraid to feel what I was feeling, which was, losing a child, losing my stepson, was a completely different type of grief than losing my father, who had lived a full 75-year life, who I had really never quarreled with, who I knew just adored me and I adored him. Um, when I lost my stepson, I felt so much guilt, so much pain, so much shame, and I really I really wanted to not feel that, but I didn't go about coping with it um, in any great way. Honestly, I was ashamed of the fights I had caused with my stepson. I was ashamed that there were times when I wanted to push him away, to have his dad more to myself. I had so much internal pain. Um, and I started doing things and behaving in a way that caused more pain and more shame, because that was what I was convinced I was worth. I was convinced I was worth suffering and struggling. But but I knew that that was not serving me, especially as a mother. I knew that it was not serving me in my relationships with my children, my husband, myself, or God. And I knew that my stepson, um, I knew that he didn't want me to feel that way. And I think that the best way to explain how I was able to get through some of that and to get back to this place of returning to my inner self faster, because trust me, I still slip, right? I still have times where I come from guilt or shame, but I'm able to return there faster because I understand now that no matter what you're going through in life, there is no storm that lasts forever. And no matter how painful something is or how guilty you feel, you can always choose a different way to feel. You can always choose a different way to think. You can always choose a different way to be. And it's making those choices for yourself time and time again, and not getting caught up in, well, it's too late, or, well, I'm already this age and I didn't start it yet, so I've run out of time, or, oh, well, that person's never going to hear my apology because they're not ready for it. It's like kind of getting to a place where you take responsibility for yourself and everything that's showing up in your life, and saying, how is this here to serve me, and how can I use this experience to serve others? And once I started going to that place, I started to write.
Well, wow. And of course, in that letter, in that video that we were watching of your dad reading your letter, you share that the biggest thing you learned was that we are God, that we're all emanations of the one, which of course is the big message. And in Wayne's work and Humanities Team's work, and it's actually the big message and ultimate reality, isn't it? That when it says in the Bible, you're made in the likeness and image of God, it really means it. You are in fact
Right, and
you're a son, a daughter, an emanation of the one.
right. And what I was taught was that, this is the downside. I joke about being raised by spiritual parents, is that I was taught that, that in life, you don't get what you want, you get what you are, that you bring into your lifetime experiences the energy that you are operating at. And I felt as though I was responsible for all of the bad things that kept happening in my life in a very short period of time. Because when you're raised by spiritual parents, there's no such thing as blame. You have to take responsibility for everything that shows up in your life. There's enormous freedom in that, right? There's enormous freedom in understanding that that you can change who you are. When you cannot change a circumstance or a situation that you're in, you are challenged to change yourself. And when you do that, you can elevate yourself out of the experience that you don't want to be in the first place. And so I knew all of that. I knew it on paper, and I had applied it to my life at different times. But oh man, was I really not there, not connecting with that, when one thing after another just kind of kept happening. But one of the things that I had this understanding, I had this knowing that it didn't have to be the way it was. I didn't have to stay stuck in these experiences or in these feelings as I had been. I just had this inner knowing that I could choose a different way for myself. And that, the phrase is something like, in order for the arrow to go forward, it first has to get pulled back. And it's like, I started to just contemplate that maybe these experiences were lessons that I needed to go through. And I signed up, if you will, to go through before I even incarnated. Because if our soul comes here into this classroom that we call our lives, then we come here to learn and to grow. And you don't get knowledge and growth by never being challenged and by staying stagnant. And so I started to change. Any Wayne Dyer fans, they're going to love this. I started to change the way I was looking at things, and the things I was looking at changed. And I say any Wayne Dyer fans are going to love it because that was probably his most famous quote. But it actually is, it's true. It's not just a clever play on words. When you change how you are approaching, looking, experiencing any situation, when you challenge the way you are experiencing a situation, you will find that the experience itself changes. And for me, it went from a lot of suffering and struggling and feeling disconnected and feeling only worthy of shame and guilt, um, to understanding that these were all just lessons that were allowing me to become more compassionate, more connected, and more aware that, as Ramdas used to say, we're all just walking each other home. More aware that God was within me, and how could I not be worthy if that is the case?
No kidding. Yes, and true for all of us. So, but personal stories are so powerful, where we're not just
Mhm.
kind of spewing dogma of this and this and this, but rather going down into, well, this is what my life has been, and then people want to really listen, because those are the real lessons where we understand that personal narrative, that journey, which is what this book is about. You were sharing, when we were talking just before this program, that your particular calling is just sharing these true stories, that this is what you're called to do as you're doing this professional work that's outside of your family, which is so powerful. Now let me turn to this book. So these where these, it talks about the 11 urgings of your soul, the knowing. So can you just, and of course I want to invite people to go check that out on Amazon, the knowing. And it's the 11 lessons to understand the quiet urges of your soul. So you'll see that book on Amazon, and Serena wrote the book with her sister Sage. Now, Serena,
Yeah, I have one right here.
yeah, oh, fantastic. Well, you can hold it up. So, so just a little, fantastic. Thank you. A little bit then, a little more on the book in terms of just some of the treasure that people will find in this book, and I'm sure there are Wayne's teachings that are now living on here now through his two daughters in this book.
Yeah, so I think, one of the biggest things that came up when we were sort of wanting to identify these 11 lessons and give them like a name, and give them a title. And one of them was what is this teaching me? What is this here to teach me? What is this difficult relationship, or this loss of, for me, it was loss of finances, um, legal challenges. What is this here to teach me? And can I get the lesson? Because I was taught as a child that, the lessons will continue. The same lesson will just keep showing up in another boyfriend or another job that isn't the right one for you. It will keep showing up until you get it, and then you move past it. And so that was one of the big things that we really touch on, is what is this teaching me? How is this challenging me to grow? And can I grow in I don't know, kindness and love, as opposed to just feeding my ego? Another one that we uh, touched on, that was my sister Sage was really keen on this, was that our dad had told us a story before he passed away. And it was a story about a man whose son was off fighting the war. And the man gets a knock on the door, and he's told that his son died, died in battle. And later that day, the man goes out dancing, and somebody says to him, your son just died and you're here dancing. How could you do that? And he said, sooner or later, I'm going to have to make peace with this. I choose sooner. And so we have a whole chapter on choosing sooner, and how that was a conscious decision that we had to make after our father passed away. Were we going to allow this shocking, unexpected loss of the person who was a great teacher to many, but was the father, and just cheerleader for his children, like just such a great guy and such a great supporter of us. Were we going to allow the loss of him to become the defining moment of our lives, where we stayed stuck from that point forward, and we couldn't communicate with him, or we couldn't discover him from a new and different place? Or were we going to look for him from, I know this is going to sound crazy, but are we going to look for him in a different way? Are we going to learn to have a relationship with him from the other side? Or are we going to stay closed off and angry and upset that he was taken from us in a time that felt too soon? I mean, there's so many. I could go through all of them if you want me to.
Well, no, that's okay. I want to invite people, though, to check out the book on Amazon. So the book, again, it's called The Knowing, 11 Lessons to Understand the Quiet Urges of Your Soul. And that's Serena and Sage Dyer. Let me read a couple of comments here, Serena, coming in. So Patty says, I was there. I was and still is one of the most moving experiences of my life, especially our visit to the House of Mary. So she's relating to what you're talking about. And then Zankana says, yes, when you tune into the light within, you start seeing everything in a new light. And then Nicole says this, she says, this is so powerful. I bow to you, dear Serena Dyer. Your dad is so proud of you. So thank you
beautiful.
to viewers.
Yeah. I bow to you. I'm always so amazed that people, I think I have it really easy in a way because I was only ever exposed to some of these ideas. So I never really knew anything else besides, we're just spiritual beings having a human experience, and the soul goes home when the time is right. And we live in a universe where there are no accidents and coincidences. Things that we call coincidences are just, really two things that come together perfectly when you're in alignment or in harmony with God, with your higher self. So I was raised on these ideas. I'm always so amazed at people who were not. And they found it for themselves and knew it to be true.
Yes, well, I'm with you. Because everybody has their own true stories and their own challenges, and we all have these roller coaster experiences in our life. But I think it's all your story is kind of a microcosm of what all of our stories are, which is to become more conscious and to become more clear who we really are, and then to embody that, to express that, to be what this invitation in life is, which is to be that emanation of the divine, that we're all actually sons and daughters, emanations of the one, which we call the divine and humanities team. One of
the things I heard all the time as a kid was that we all have a choice, and the choice is to be a host to God or a hostage to our ego. And our ego is the part of us that tells us that we are separate from everyone else. We are separate from God. That we are what other people think of us, or what we have, or how we look, or what we do. And when we come from that place, we are forgetting that all of those things are temporary and finite, how you look or what you have or what you do or what other people think of you. But when you are the host to God and you remember that it is God that is inside of you and everyone, it's like then you see the humanity, you see the unfolding of God in everyone that you meet. And even if you don't see it in them, which trust me, there's plenty of people I don't see it right away in, but I still know it's there. And I choose to just remember that, so that all of the relationships and the people that I meet, I don't know, that I can just remind myself that I'm no better or worse than anyone else. I'm just a host to God, and give the glory to my higher power instead of thinking it's all glory to me, which I have a tendency to do sometimes, but that might be another book.
I was just going to say, actually, I think, wow, the title of your next book, A Host to God or a Hostage to Something Else, that is like, wow, I love that. Very powerful, and that is the invitation to, and of course we are all the divine essence. So why would we want to be other than who we really are? But nice. That's a nice way of framing it. Beautiful. Well, so again, people can check out this book, The Knowing 11 Lessons to Understand the Quiet Urges of Your Soul. Also, Humanities Stream.plus, this program is going into all of our Accelebration programs, become a part of the Humanities Stream Plus platform, which has a 7-day free trial. So I just want to share that. You can go check out the platform. Its whole purpose, so we're a global nonprofit organization, so we don't have any shareholders, no revenue targets or profit targets. Our whole purpose in creating the Humanities Stream Plus platform is to help accelerate people's conscious evolution, to support their conscious journey, and to support this whole 20-year time frame for PACE, where we're inviting people to pick up the pace so that we can create a fully conscious humanity, a fully conscious Earth in 20 years. Isn't it time to pick up the pace? We're clearly not on that pace now, but this Humanities Stream Plus platform is here to support people so we can become fully conscious ourselves and share these teachings in our household and in our workplace and so on. So check out the platform. There's a 7-day free trial. This program with Serena's going on the Stream Plus platform along with these other Accelebration programs, and there are 10 master classes currently, 10 other transformational education programs. There's over 550 hours of content on this platform. We're adding content every week, so invite people to check that out. Now, Serena, I want to come back to you. There's this, we of course in Humanities team are in this loop with your family and Karen Noe, and her whole just amazing story where your dad from the afterlife was, and Karen Noe is a medium. She's also a Hay House author, and of course Wayne Dyer was the big Hay House author. And then after he passed from the afterlife, he reached out through Karen Noe to your family with all of these personal messages and with this book called We Consciousness. Let me turn to that story, because that's a truly amazing thing, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, I have to tell you, Karen, when I went to her office, she was having a session with myself, my sister Sage, my sister Sky, and my mom, Marceline. And we had met Karen at the Celebration of Life in honor of my dad after he passed a month before that. And Karen was very, I mean, you know Karen, she's very soft-spoken. She's very gentle. She's very petite. But we got to her office for this reading that we were going to do with her, and it was like my dad had taken over her body. She was like almost yelling at us, but in a funny way. But like, come on, let's go! You guys are taking so long, And it sounded exactly like our dad. But I have to tell you the craziest thing. So when we were there, she said to me, and your dad says to you, congratulations, you're pregnant. And I right away thought, well, this is, I'm not sure what kind of gifts she has, because I had a 6-month-old baby and I was doing everything in my power not to get pregnant. And I was, I just didn't think it was possible. And I thought that she was just picking up on the fact that I just had a baby. And so I said to her, oh, I have a 6-month-old, so maybe you're picking up on that, but no, I'm not pregnant. And she said, no, your dad is saying you are, and something about fireworks, the 4th of July. And I said, I don't know. I mean, we always were with our dad on Maui for the 4th of July, and we would have a big barbecue and watch the fireworks. So maybe that's it. And I remember my mom and sisters looking at me and saying, are you pregnant? And I was like, no, I will go take a test right when we leave here. So anyway, then the next 2 hours with her was like, she just touched on so many things that were without a doubt her gift on full display, her channeling our dad, or her bringing him in and getting really specific, unknown outside of our family messages for each one of us, that the moment we left there, I went to get a pregnancy test, because I'm thinking, oh my God, she's so good. What if she's right? She was right. I was pregnant, and my daughter, my second daughter, was due on the 4th of July. And the day I went into labor on the 1st of July, um, I was in the hospital and in the delivery room, and my mom and my sisters were there, and my husband, and it was just about time to push. And my sister Sage says, "Karen's calling me. Should I answer?" And I'm in labor. I mean, I'm ready to have the baby, and I said, "Answer it, answer it." And she said, my dad was urging Karen to call because she had a message that she had to give me. But our dad was saying, call Sage because Serena's tied up right now. And which was true. I was tied up in labor. And the message was that he was there, and that he was right there with me and with all of us. And he was so excited for me to welcome in my baby girl, Windsor Wayne. Poor girl got his name as her middle name, but and it was such an incredible moment, because as anybody who's ever witnessed the birth of a child or had a child, they know that it's such a moment that you never forget when your child is in your arms for the first time. And to know that my dad was there with me, it was just, I am so grateful to Karen for her willingness to send us the messages that she gets from him, because she's incredibly gifted. And that comes through in her book, We Consciousness. It absolutely comes out loud and clear.
She is an extraordinary medium. Oh my gosh. And of course, she's got a 2-year wait just to do these medium experiences with families, because she's so on target. What an extraordinary experience to have your dad pass like this. And then, and it's funny, because your dad, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, I don't know him, but you knew him through public television, et cetera, as a strong guy, right? A very strong
Right.
guy. And so, and then Karen's story, who's a good friend of Humanity's Team, we work closely together on our Global Oneness Summit and programs year-round, master classes and things. And she shared that he came to her in a very strong way of, call my family now, and it was
Right.
like 6 a.m. or something.
And she didn't want to do that, because, as I said, she's more quiet and she's more gentle. And anybody that knew my dad knew that he was just loud. And, I think I get some of my chattiness from him. I mean, he was very boisterous, and she's really not that way. And so she would call and she would sound like him a little bit, like just a lot louder than usual, or a lot more forceful than usual. And then she would go and say, "Oh, I feel so bad. I'm so sorry. It's just your dad told me that I had to call you." And then it'd go back, and I would say, "Karen, don't ever apologize. I am so grateful to know that he's still here." And one of my favorite things that she said was that it's not that he's just here for his children and my mother and his family members. It's that he's here. He's a thought away for anyone that wants to ask him for help or for guidance. And I know that to be true about him when he was here in the physical way. He loved being of service. He loved doing the work. He loved helping people. And he loved touching people, touching people's lives. And it's so wonderful to know that he's still getting to do that from the other side in an even bigger way than when he was here, because he's just a thought away. He's not bound by any physical limitation.
Yeah, really, such an extraordinary story. Now, and of course, as you mentioned, at the same time, he brought Karen this book called We Consciousness, 33 Concepts for Living Consciously, with the We Guides, which included St. Francis's. So this collaboration then with others from the afterlife. And then this book, We Consciousness, has got these 33 important concepts, and the first one is that we are all one with God and angels and all parts of life, which is such an important message. And he's really given a lot of volume to that message from the afterlife, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. And actually, it's something that I think is so beautifully summed up in something that he used to say to us as children when we would fight with when my brothers and sisters and I would have an argument or a fight or whatever, as siblings do. He would say that the Native American tradition says, that there is a Native American tradition that says, no tree has branches so foolish as to fight amongst themselves. And that we are all, every single one of us, are branches of the divine. And when we are engaging in conflict, we are identifying from our separateness, which is just a belief that the ego has. But when we come from the place of knowing that we're all connected, that we're all part of source, of universe, of God, or divine mind, whatever you want to call it, when you live from that knowing, you experience a life full of miracles and void of conflict. And who wouldn't want that?
Yeah, and when we talk about even this PACE initiative in 20 years, a fully conscious humanity, a fully conscious Earth, and all life on Earth, this is what we're embodying, right? This is our expression. Then is what we're talking about, where we're not some tree that's it's fighting with itself. We're not stuck in these whack-a-mole things of this is right and that's wrong, and we need to fight this other force. We're out beyond that. So we're now in this place of where we're, as you were expressing it, hosting the divine instead of hosting something other than that, which is separate.
Yeah, and I think that the world needs what you're doing so much, because it's such a reminder that conflict cannot survive without your participation, and that you have a choice to begin to contemplate yourself as living from God consciousness, or the idea or the knowing that we're all one, that we're all connected. And when you do that, when you begin to contemplate it, or to put it into your conscious mind, at least what I have found is that people, they begin to behave differently. And when you are coming from the place of knowing that we are all connected, I find that we just make choices and decisions that take us closer to God, or to peace, or to love, or to joy. And who doesn't want to feel those things? And we have less conflicts in our lives, and we have less difficulties, because we're not energetically in alignment with that any longer, with conflict. If conflict cannot survive without your participation, when you start to really understand that and live from that place, you stop participating in conflict, and then you have a life full of so much more peace. And I think it really starts with yourself, with the story you tell yourself about yourself. As my dad used to say, if you have an orange and you squeeze it, what do you get out? Well, you get out orange juice. If somebody were to squeeze you, if you're in a situation that's squeezing you, that's testing you, that's trying you, what does somebody get out of that? What do they get out if they squeeze you? It's whatever you have inside. And whatever you have inside is what you're going to give out when you're in a situation where you're being challenged. So do you fill yourself with thoughts and experiences that align you with peace, or do you fill yourself with ones that are fully immersed in being at war with yourself or at war with others? It's like, which one would you rather have in your life? More conflict or more peace?
Yeah, no kidding. And of course, what ancient wisdom says, and your dad taught this, as do many others. You referenced Uncle Deepak, and the humanities team, and all of these other, Marianne Williamson, and on and on. The Dyer adults now that were the Dyer family. It's It's that we're eternal beings. So this is could like our like you could call it your 900th life or something. So we're eternal beings that have an unlimited nature. And after each life, right, there's a life review. Most of us are familiar with that because this has been talked about and channeled by so many. This experience we just shared of Wayne now talking to his family about all these specific things, telling Serena, you're pregnant and you're going to have a baby on July 4. My God, how do these things happen? They're true. So what can happen then is we can not become conscious, and we can just kind of stay stuck in these habits and patterns where we're not feeling peace. We're hosting something other than the divine. And then at the end of our life, we have a life review, and it's like, we relive that, and it's not so cool. Or the big we could host the divine, understand who we really are, decide that we're going to embody and express that and feel the beauty of that in this lifetime, have this marvelous life where we're in service. And then in our afterlife review, we're getting to repeat it again, where we're watching ourselves have all of this influence over people, which is what your dad did, right? I'm sure. And as he was going through his afterlife experience, that must have been a marvelous experience where he was traveling all over the world, touching so many people, changing lives. Right. I mean, isn't that the invitation here?
Yeah, I mean, and that's why, as you said, that's why the other book that we did together, we titled it Don't Die with Your Music Still in You, because that was of all the lessons that he and my mom had wanted to raise us on, to really instill. That for me was the most profound, that I had a choice to honor the inner callings of my soul, of my dharma. I had a choice where I could do that, or I could do what everybody else expected of me, or what everybody else wanted of me, or what would make people think more highly of me. I could do the opposite of honoring my own inner music that I came here to play, that each of us comes here to play. And in choosing to not die with whatever it is that I came here to do, and feeling as though I was able to do some of that, it's something that is so important to me now as a mother, because my dad really, I've had people ask me before, like, what's the most important or profound lesson that he ever taught you? And I often think it's not anything that he said, it's what he did. He didn't say, Serena, follow your dreams, honey. You can be anything you want. And meanwhile, he was at home sacrificing his own. He lived his dharma. He fulfilled what he felt he was called to do. And even if that meant sometimes he had to miss things at home or miss things for the family, he had a calling to serve something bigger than himself. And as his child, getting to witness that somehow, I think, subconsciously gave me permission to do the same. That I don't have to sacrifice anything to fulfill whatever it is I came here to fulfill. In fact, all I have to do is pay attention to what calls to me, what excites me on a soul level, and honor that without any concern for what other people are going to think, or how it's going to look, or how much money it's going to make me or not make me. And I think that we all have that choice. And again, it's about being a host to God, because that part of you that is calling to you is the part of you that is God. In fact, let me just say this, the word enthusiasm, which when you're enthusiastic about something, when you have enthusiasm for something, you're excited. It's an internal excitement. And it's broken down, that word enthusiasm is broken down into entheosiasm, which in ancient Greek is translated into the God within. When you are enthusiastic about something, you are honoring the God within. I mean, don't take that enthusiasm to your grave.
And that's your true self. Yeah, your true self, ultimate reality. And so, and it's time we wake up, right, to that we're some separate, one life sort of being. It's not true. It's an illusion, and it's time we wake up. And that's what this PACE initiative is about. So I want to invite viewers to this, to pick up the pace with us. Planetary Awakening, Conscious Evolution. Let's in 20 years create a fully conscious humanity, a fully conscious planet where we honor the earth and all of life on earth with all of the other sentient beings that are here with human life. And if you go to humanitiesteam.org, you can learn more about this PACE initiative. So Serena, I want to thank you so much. Oh my gosh, for being here with us for the hour. What a fantastic, just really open, very transparent conversation this has been. And I want to thank you just for sharing so personally and sharing about your books and your dad and your family. Let's leave it. I want to just go to you here before we close to share what does your life look like that's out in front of you? What are things that you're called to here at this point?
I was just actually thinking that just before you asked me that, I was thinking about how at the beginning of our conversation you asked me if this was my dharma, if this was what I was going to do, give talks or write more books. And I said, I don't really know. I just want to be a storyteller. And then I was just thinking about how much I just talked. And I was feeling slightly insecure, like, wow, did I just ramble on and on? And it made me kind of laugh and think, gosh, am I enthusiastic about this? I can't even shut up. I'm so enthusiastic about it. So maybe you're right. Maybe when you asked me, is this my dharma? I guess it is, because I get so excited to share these ideas and these things and these stories with you and everyone. So I think what's next is more showing up for hosting God and letting go more and more of the ego, which doesn't happen overnight.
Great. Well, no, it's a journey. So it's a journey, and thank you again for being with us. And we'll come back to you, Serena. We have a Global Oneness Summit and other programs, master classes, and things we do year round. So we'll definitely stay close with you. I hope this is your dharma. You've got a gift, and
thank you.
Wow, God knows it's time that we create this fully conscious humanity. Your dad was such a contributor to this, but there's a lot more to do. And I know from the other side, he's rooting. He's shouting everybody on, saying, "Let's go! We can do this! Come on!"
Yeah. Pick up the pace.
He's available to those who call on him. Right. So I want the camera to come back and just. I'm here with marvelous partners here, and I've got Jim and Noah with me. If they want to just kind of shout out, there we go. Okay, so this is our studio here in Boulder. And you can see Jim Gray, Noah. Hey, thank you guys.
And it's Steve's birthday today.
Oh, yeah. Woo, it is my birthday today.
Happy
so
birthday.
You, Noah. All right. Thanks, Serena. Well, it's been a birthday present here, you joining us. Thank you. And viewers, thank you for spending the hour with us. Wow, what an incredible hour. And of course, we're back live next week. So, and Serena, we'll be reaching out to you again. Thank you for spending this quality time with us, and love to all of your family.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a fabulous weekend, and we'll see you next week.